Okay. All right.
Okay, it's all yours.
Yeah. All right, great. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate you having us today. My name is Dave McGrath. I am with Click Data Integration. Also with me, Mary Ledbetter, my senior solution architect for Click Data Integration. Just a bit about myself. I actually started with the company in 2018 as we were Attunity, acquired by Click, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that background in a moment. I live locally in the Nashville area, Gallatin, Tennessee, and so excited to be a part of a local community for Azure and the group. Mary, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. I'm Mary Ledbetter, and I'm going to go on video when I start my talk. Right now, I'm closing things down so I can find some bandwidth. But I work with Dave. I live in Atlanta, which is why I'm not there. And I am I'm kind of the technical part of the team with Dave. And I'm going to try to give you guys an idea of what Click Data Integration platform can do.
So it works. Since we've got some local and some remote today, it absolutely we're splitting the difference the same here as well. So we'll jump right in. And what I want to do is I'm going to give a little bit of background understanding on who we are, where we fit, what we do, right? Mary's going to dive into more of a technical overview of the solution, kind of pause in between the two and maybe get some feedback and questions from the group, because we obviously have different people from different organizations with different backgrounds may have a different point of view, and we'll try to tailor a bit of what you may have questions on or what you may want to see into that discussion. So certainly we'll keep it open for that conversation. But the first thing I like to do is have whenever we come as Click with our logo, with that background, we get a lot of people that there's brand recognition for Click. And primarily that's going to be for Click's analytics products, their BI, Click View, the legacy product, Click Sense, the new cloud products. And our focus today, obviously, if you saw the agenda, is really not in that area. Mary and I both work for the division of Click Data Integration. We started with Attunity, which had a long history in the space that we'll be discussing. And the acquisition of Attunity by Click in 2019 formed the Click Data Integration platform. And so it is those things just on the left side of the screen that we'll be talking about today. Certainly Click has that complete offering, but frankly, when it comes to an Azure focused group, Click was no friend of Microsoft, and Microsoft no friend of Click prior to 2019. They had directly competing products that I don't think were complementary or that they cooperated in any way. But with the acquisition of Attunity, we have a very strong partnership with Microsoft, and you'll see why in a moment. But we do a ton of work with the local Microsoft team. We co-sell with them. We've been an awarded partner for data integration. Very complementary and very successful relationship that we have in that area. But we then just really stay agnostic to BI. Whether customers using Click products, Power BI, or even another tool, we are agnostic in that approach. So, first off, to that point, Click Data Integration. Who are we? What do we do? Why would anybody be interested in these capabilities if they're focused on Azure? And so this kind of summarizes our focus and where we fit in the business, right? The ability to efficiently capture large volumes of change data from a variety of different source systems, moving that data in near real time to an analytics target most often, and applying that data to analytics targets, data warehouses and data lakes, typically now in cloud, with automation for business consumers to use to have that data cataloged, provisioned, and ready for BI consumption. So this is our kind of focus statement. We're focused on organizations trying to build those architectures to move data in near real time to cloud solutions. This is commonly, if you're not part of this industry, this is change data capture is a common phrase that we use. We are a leader in change data capture in that we support more sources and target systems than anybody in the industry. We do it with a very easy to use interface, simple UI that customers can get trained on very quickly, does not require code. And we've done this in now the hundreds of thousands with our cloud partners. So whether we're talking about Azure, which I would say frankly Azure is our #1 partner when it comes to new business that we go out and partner on and win together. But certainly we have, maybe in volumes at least as much, if not more, in AWS out there and a growing portion of Google. I think our market shares kind of mirror what their market share looks like. But we've been relied on by these cloud partners to move data to their solutions and to continue to move data to their cloud solutions. Like I think we said, over 300,000 to date, but probably even more than that by now. And our focus in doing so is not just being a leader in all of those supported endpoints that customers need, but really applying automation in the way customers connect to the data, integrate the data, and how they land and organize the data without having to engage in building more ETL code for integrations and for transformations. So we tell companies in many cases, right, there's a lot of different ways organizations can integrate data between source and target solutions. We would point to these 4 areas specifically to say, are we the type of solution you need, or potentially not, right? We're not a fit for every organization, but we'd say if you have a number of these needs, 2, 3, certainly if you have all 4, we may be a very ideal modern architecture type of approach. So if customers are looking for real-time data movement from source systems into their data warehouses and data lakes or to microservices, if they're dealing with SAP, mainframe, Oracle, SQL Server, varieties of different source systems that they need to consolidate, and they're looking for automation and then certainly scale. We do a lot with some of the largest businesses out there, Fortune 50 organizations and very large data consumers. So the products scale very well right up through, I would say almost any size architecture. So, what does this mean specifically? Because I think for many of you, you might sit in different places in the business where we see the marketplace making moves that are getting our solutions involved are primarily in these 3 areas. So these are the kind of trends and use cases that, no matter where you are, you may hear about your organization doing one of these 3 things. So first, cloud application development. For cloud, that's a very broad term, but everybody's obviously moving to cloud. When they're doing so, are they migrating to these solutions very quickly, or are they building applications and migrating over time? Or essentially, are they going to coexist in a hybrid environment where they're going to continue to run applications on-premise and then develop applications in cloud, and they need data synchronized between the 2? So we've tackled all of those scenarios, whether it's one-time migrations to Azure for synchronization, or if somebody wants a streaming data approach where they're moving data as changes occur so they can continue to operate both databases at the same time and build out microservices. We do that very, very well. But then as we go into kind of the second and third use case, modernization of data warehouses and data lakes is huge for us. So companies that are looking to build out new cloud data warehouses typically don't want to rebuild them like they built their legacy data warehouses. They want a more modern approach with less overhead, less code, and less complexity. And so we offer capabilities for companies to achieve that, to reduce the legacy architecture, adopt cloud warehouses, and rebuild and target those, or also next generation analytics, data lakes, and streams such as Kafka. So we see combinations of many of the above. Organizations that are rebuilding all of their data architecture may have modern data warehouse, data lake, blended type of approach. They may be doing all 3 of these things at once when it comes to how they're rebuilding that architecture. We do cover all of the above. So let me do this. Actually, let me back up one slide for a moment and just pause here. Anybody either on the phone or in the room that has one or more of these scenarios or any questions around sort of the use case at a high level, just to make sure we're kind of landing to scenarios that you may be seeing out there today. So we kind of pause there and just see if this generates any questions, just for the use cases, maybe in your organization or anything else you're looking at in your pipelines. Mary, you're muted, Mary.
I said it may be a short meeting, Dave.
I know, that's okay.
I'm just kidding.
Well, and I will talk about what the solution does, but I do want to be, I want to be, so let me jump ahead a slide here. And I know, let's see, Ryan, George, Sean, by all means, we've got same, five people here. So you guys don't be shy if you got any questions around those use cases. To us, we know when it comes to data analytics, Azure use, right? There's a select few people in the business that, may cover each responsibility. Our solution is not, widely touching everybody's needs, but it sometimes I do talk to people and say, well, if you're a consumer of data and you're asking your IT or your DBAs for certain data, and you're finding you're not getting that data at the speed or availability that you need it, our architecture may be an answer for that, and maybe why, maybe something we can help with. But this is, we call it a marketing architecture, if you will, of exactly what our solution does. And I'll kind of walk you through this at a high level, and then Mary can talk as much as we need to or not at a technical level. But if you imagine our solution sitting in the blue box, essentially, we can connect to any number of source systems on the left. So relational databases that may be running business applications, existing data warehouses, flat files, mainframe systems, SaaS applications such as Salesforce, and then SAP, ECC, as well as HANA. So any number of these systems that run the business today, we can connect to those systems, copy data over to a variety of different targets. Once the data is copied over initially, we can generate a change stream where as changes occur on the source system, we're writing them in near real time to the target. We do it in most all these cases with a log reading approach, where we are not putting any additional burden on the source system for that near real-time data. As changes occur and they're written to logs, we're reading logs and writing those changes to targets through that log change. So that's a typical approach for our CDC. So no additional load on the system, near real-time stream. And then as we land the data to the target solution, the target systems, which can be a number of targets, could be one or it could be many, companies pick. We can do three different things. We can land the data as a really similar or exact copy of what was produced on the source system to a different database type, what is considered just a CDC streaming copy. We can apply the data into a data warehouse with automation. So we can have with our solution, if you're pointing us to a new data warehouse such as Snowflake on Azure, or Synapse on Azure, or just Azure SQL databases. If you're building new data warehouses and data marts, our solution can write the code for the schema to build the data warehouse for you and manage the ongoing changes to the data warehouse without code. So for many small, mid-sized organizations or anybody rebuilding there, that's a huge advantage. What we plan to talk mostly about today, if that hits home with anybody. And then finally, data lakes, right? When organizations land data in their data lake, there's unique challenges they face there. And we can, with our solution, apply some automation to how data is landed in the lake and how it can be consumed out. And on top of data warehouses and data lakes, we also add cataloging functionality, which ultimately for end users gives a variety of different ways that data can be consumed. But I kind of talk about the idea, if you're on the left side of this equation, you're worried about security, how things are affecting the database, performance of the database, and many other areas of reducing code. If you're on the right side, you're saying, I need data, I needed it yesterday, and I need it refreshed regularly, not overnight or weekly or monthly or whatever it may be. Our solution may help solve and speed up some of those problems. So let me pause there. That's sort of the solution at a high level, what it does and where we focus and what we do. What questions does this generate?
So where does this run?
Good question. We got where is it run? Mary, you want to, and yeah, let's go ahead and take that first. I did not really talk architecture much.
No, so it can run where you need it to run. Basically, right now, the click replication product. Actually, you couldn't have set me up better if you had tried. If we'd got together ahead of time and said, "Please ask this question." So, let me do this so we don't mess up Dave in his order. Dave, if you could go forward a slide.
Yep, absolutely.
And we can come back to this. I can distribute this deck to you guys, so don't feel like you have to take notes or pictures or anything like that. But on the left-hand side is the sources that we support for, hooking into these sources, and then we will support right now out of the box, we support the targets that you see on the right. And those targets that you see on the right with the little purple box to the right of them, as it says up here, as it says on the top right, mean that we not only can we target those with replicated data from your source, but we can also create either a data warehouse or a data lake using those targets, so that we can greatly increase the time to market for building those types of structures. So this is the source and target. And I believe I've been doing this with Attunity and now Click for 6.5 years. And I've been in this market for a really long time. And I think this is probably the most comprehensive list of sources and targets out there. And not only that, but we do it with a single GUI interface. So once you set up the connection to your source or your target, we call that an endpoint. So an endpoint is either to source or target, but you need to provide connection information, and you have to have appropriate permissions to be able to access the sources and to be able to write to and manipulate the target. But once that's set up one time, then you can theoretically create a replicate task, which is what we call a job, to move data from any one of these sources to any one of the targets that you see on this list. And we can come back to that. If you've got use cases in your head, a lot of times we'll go in and somebody will have, I got a SQL Server source here and I really, really want to put it in Synapse. And we can make that happen really quickly. But then after you've done that, you sit back and you've got that in production. You're like, well, you got this mainframe thing, or maybe I got some Oracle in there, or what have you, and you can just add to. So it's an iterative, agile, if you will, thing. But if you go forward one slide, please, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
This is it's not exactly a reference architecture, but it's close. And it's more informative than my reference architecture, so I'm using this instead. But what Replicate does right now, it is a client managed middle tier server that can sit on-prem, it can sit in the cloud, it can be a VM. If it's on-prem, it can be a physical machine. It can run on Windows or it can run on Linux, depending on your needs. Most Microsoft customers run on Windows just because. Why wouldn't you? But again, we don't judge. If you want to run on Linux, that's fine as well. So what you would do is provision a replicate server in the position that makes the most sense for what it is you're trying to accomplish as a business, right? So what your objectives are determines where the replicate server lives. So if you've got a source, like let's say you're running a SQL Server RDS no, that's a really bad example. Let's say you're running SQL Azure DB in the cloud, and you want to target a Synapse database, or maybe you want to target ADLS or something like that, then it would make sense to put the replicate server in the cloud. But let's say you've got this big hunkin', SQL Server farm, or a mainframe, or AS400, or any Sybase and format, you just name it. You've got something and it's on-prem, it's unlikely to go anywhere else. There's a lot of data there, and you want to move that to Synapse in the cloud. In that case, it might make more sense for you to locate the server on-prem, because it's faster to get data. I mean, when they're co-located, there are some efficiencies to be gained from them being in the same data center. and then to transfer data to the Synapse target after you've parsed the logs and gotten the data that you want to move. Sometimes maybe you want to have one in both. Sometimes if you've got a whole bunch of data and you've got a whole bunch of sources, you might want to have more than one replicate server. You can have as many as you want. We don't charge by replicate server. That's the only pricing comment you will ever hear me make, is that we don't charge by replicate server. So we recommend that you put them where and how it makes sense for what you're trying to do. So being a true middle tier environment, and we work with Microsoft really tightly with replicate, simply because, there's things we do. There's a box we fit into. It's a pretty broad box, but that we can do better than anyone. And we recognize Microsoft is a great partner of ours, and they come to us for those things we do in that box. And we recognize that Azure Data Factory is out there. We work really well with that. So there's efficiencies of scale, just picking where to go. But for replicate, what you do is you would provision a server, let's say 8 cores, 32 gigs of RAM, something like that. And you provision it either in the cloud or on-prem, doesn't matter, in this hypothetical environment that I'm setting up for you here. You would, let's say it's Windows, and we would then install onto that replicate server, since it's a true middle tier, you would install our software, obviously, and then you'd install the Microsoft. Let's say we're going from SQL Server to on-prem to Synapse or Azure SQL DB in the cloud. Or, and this David didn't say, but let's say you're going to SQL Server on-prem. We have a whole bunch of customers who are not at the cloud yet, who aren't necessarily, maybe they're halfway at the cloud or a third of the way at the cloud. All those targets you saw in that previous slide, a whole bunch of them are on-prem. So you're not limited to cloud, but most of our customers have some component of that. But I'm doing 2 POCs right now that are both on-prem to on-prem. So it's not required. So on the replicate server, you would, for a SQL Server to Synapse or Azure DB, you would install the ODBC Microsoft native client software, the API software, ODBC software, 64-bit, and our software. And once you've done that, you can open replicate. You can say, okay, I need to create a source. I need to create a target. So I go in, I say new source, I pick SQL Server, I enter the appropriate information for connecting to SQL Server, like the IP address or whatever alias you use to connect within your environment, whether you're using Windows or SQL authentication, username, password, and the database that you want to pull data from for this endpoint that I'm creating. Then on the target side, you would do the same. You'd say, I want to create a target endpoint. Let's say Synapse. We're going to be using blob storage or ADLS for my storage layer. You would specify that and then supply the appropriate connectivity information and keys to access both your storage layer and your data warehouse on the cloud target. So once you've done that, you can test it within replicate. You say, yep, everything's connecting, and then you're ready to create a task. And to do a task, you say, I want this source, I want this target, and I want these tables. And you may want to do a little bit of transformation or filtering down towards the bottom there in the middle. We're not recommending transformations in terms of like ETL, because this is data replication and you don't want to lose your lineage. You also don't want to slow it down. So the kinds of transformations are like maybe you've got some dates that come in wonky on your source and you want to make sure that they're set up a certain way on your target. You can set a global transformation to transform any date into a certain format. Or you want to add a column to every single table on target with the commit date, so you know when every row was committed at the source system. Things like that we do all the time. And there's lots more examples, but those are just top ahead. And then filtering, maybe you've got 10 years of data and you only want to move 3, or maybe there's, some columns you don't want to move, or whatever your filter, I want to move this business unit, but not others, et cetera. So you would select your source, select your target, do any transformations or filtering, any other tweaking that you can within the GUI. It's really simple to use. I usually have POC people up to speed on the GUI in 2 days max. And then you press go, or it's actually run. And when you do that, Replicate's going to go out and it's going to grab it's going to look at the tables. Let's say we selected 100 tables. It's going to go to the SQL Server source. It's going to find those 100 tables in the database that you've selected. It's going to pick up the DDL for those tables. It's going to move that data onto the Replicate server in memory. Canonicalizes the data type because the data types in Synapse may not be the same as those in SQL Server. Most heterogeneous transformations, data types aren't going to be the same, and we have a map between every source and every target we support. So you will then, as it moves through Replicate, if those schema do not exist on the target that you say you want to move to, we'll create the schema. If the tables don't exist, we'll create the tables using the appropriate data types, and then we'll start moving data from the full load the first time we do this in a select star.star type fashion. So it is a database read the first time. But as soon as you start that full load, we take note of the last LSN number read in that full load, and we immediately start monitoring the T-log for the next LSN number. And if that happens before the full load finishes, then we're going to cache that transaction in a cache store on Replicate until the full load is completed, at which time we unspool any cache transactions that have happened on source since the full load started until it's caught up. And at that point, then we are just monitoring your T-log. And whenever a DML statement hits the T-log that's in your Replicate task, we're going to pick it up, move it to target right away. And you can set the frequency that we actually hit the log. I think it's defaults to maybe a second or half a second or something like that. And it will move over. And if you have the server sized appropriately for the volume of data that you're trying to move on a daily basis, because the full load is an anomaly, right? The CDC is how much data are you moving from source to target on a daily basis. If the Replicate server, since we work in memory, those 8 cores and 32 gigs of RAM can move a whole lot of data really fast. But if you're trying to move an extra whole lot of data, you may need to tweak that size. And then the speed of your network is also important. So how fast your network is, and then the volume of data and the size of the server dictate how much and how fast you can move. And we try to get within the SLAs of the business. Most people are wanting real time or within 5 seconds, and we can accommodate whatever those SLAs happen to be. If you make a change on your source in your DDL, you add a table, or you add a column, or you alter a table and change the data type, or delete a column, those types of things, we can automatically pick up that DDL from the logs and make those changes onto target automatically, so that you don't have to keep track of what DDL has happened on the source. So that's typically a big plus. Some people would rather cut off a limb than have the system automatically make a DDL change for them, but that's going to be a personal preference on what you want. Lots of customers, it's why they bought the software, because they have such a hard time keeping up with their DDL changes on source, because they themselves are development environments. So up to you. You don't have to do it, is I guess what I'm getting at. And I think we've talked about pretty much everything here. This batch here, let's say you have some data that you want to move once a week. You've got a file that comes in and you want to move it to target and just overwrite the target and replace the data once a week or every day, or maybe just once, or with whatever frequency you want. You can create a task that is just a full load task, and it will run once and then stop. And then it won't run again until you either kick it off manually or a schedule is created to kick it off. So that's what this batch here means. But for the most part, CDC is just running. And I'm not kidding you when I say that you can make this happen without looking at or touching a line of SQL. This is all done through the GUI, and it works automatically, quickly. And then, Dave, can you advance the slide, please?
Yeah.
We can also, if you've got a source and you're concerned with hitting that database, multiple times, you can create this construct called the log stream on your replicate server. It's a binary file with up to 9 different levels of compression that you can set up if you want. But you can full load your data into as many targets as you want, and then have the task look for the log stream for changes. So that instead of having to go back to the T-logs every time as it's doing CDC, it can go to the log stream and deliver to your data lakes, your data warehouse, Kafka, wherever you want to put it, ADLS, wherever it needs to go. So I have some people who are doing this going from production to lower environments. They've got filters on. You can put a filter on this task so you don't move all of the data. So much flexibility on what you can do. If you can go one more slide for me, Dave, and then I'm going to finish this slide and then I will open it up. So with Replicate, we don't move DDL other than data related DDL, new table, add column, delete column, etc. So stored procedures, we don't move. We don't move views. We don't move constraints. So when we pick those 1,000 tables that I just theoretically talked about, when that data gets through Click Replicate and gets dumped into, I'm calling it a real-time ODS on this slide, but it's a landing area, right? Let's say it's in Synapse, it's in a database in a table in Synapse. When the data gets dumped into this table, those 1,000 tables have a primary key, and they're collecting CDC data fast and furiously, depending on how quickly you're generating it on your source. And if it's real time, then it'll be hitting in here real time. Both of those things, the fact that it's got a primary key only and that it's collecting CDC, so this data is changing every minute, make this a really terrible place to query from. You do not want users querying this database because you're going to have people with different answers, every minute. So the Click Compose for data warehouses, which is part of our platform, allows you to really, really quickly develop a data warehouse. We use a hybridized data vault technology, and so that it will take data from this landing area, stage it, configure it, and move it into a data warehouse with the appropriate fact and dimension tables. It can be a normalized data warehouse, and additionally, we track every attribute in this warehouse for type 1, type 2, meaning that you can also store history. So if you want to know how your sales regions and territories change over time, as changes are made, the current record will be tagged with a to date and a new record inserted with the current information. So you can report on operational as well as historical data from within here. You can also, because we're a data-driven model that you create with this warehouse, you can go all the way back to your source system, not for data. Data's already right here in the real-time ODS, right? You can go, you can instruct Compose to go back to the source system to pick up foreign key relationships that existed on the source, so that we can get the model set up for you as much as possible from what's in the source, your source or sources. Then you can tweak the model to whatever you need it to be for your people. And when you press the generate button, we will write the SQL for you to move data from your real-time landing area, this ODS here, into the data warehouse. I was on site when we built one for a customer of ours, and we built 500,000 lines of SQL code in less than 5 minutes. So if you've ever written SSIS or tried to manage SSIS packages, this is literally like magic, because we'll write this code for you. If you need to change the code, you can often go in and change your model so that relationships are defined differently. You can write before and after SQL that you can execute. You can even execute external Perl scripts or Python or something if you want to do something to the model after the SQL has been run. And then from here, you have a data vault type data warehouse with hub and satellite tables with type 1, type 2 attributes. And from there, Compose allows you to very quickly, very efficiently spin out Kimball-based star schema, fact table, dimension tables from the data warehouse so that you can provision these for your users. So you could, have a summarized financial data mart for your CFO for end of month, or an operational data store data mart for, the current month up through today. And you can have a temporal one comparing this year from last year. But the point is that you can very quickly and easily provision marts for your users. These are not lightweight marts, it's just fast to do. And again, then we would write the SQL code to move the data from the data warehouse into the marts that your users would consume. And then over top of it all, we have a catalog product that allows you to point at your marts or at your warehouse or really anywhere you want, so that you can describe to your users what data elements are there for them to put onto their reports, where they came from, the lineage, how they're created, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that I will stop, and I'm tired of talking. Let you guys ask questions as you will. If you have them.
Okay, I got a question. Let me go on in the room. Go ahead.
Yes, I mean, back in the days, I used to work with Informatica and Data Stage and SAP and Microsoft EPM.
Yeah,
Some of these concepts sound familiar. So you are this QLake data house automation system. I mean, takes to the next level where you have integration of all the different systems, from source to target and to the cloud. I mean, is that how this works?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Mary. Yeah, and by the way, so I can actually I'll back up a moment because I know this was right. So I think we I don't know if you hit this at the beginning.
Okay, I'll see.
That's exactly right. And then I'll let Mary weigh in on kind of the technical differences. But at a high level, most of the solutions you're working with in the past,
Yes.
relatively complex, relatively heavy on code, and many times only built for certain source systems, certain target systems.
Yes.
And then companies would, on top of moving data, may have to use completely different tools for organizing the data into the analytics store.
Right.
Right. And so to answer your question, yes, right. That is, we're built for automation
Yes.
across a large number of systems, pulling the data in, organizing it without code, and speeding up the time for analytics consumers to have near real-time data from that broad range of source systems into a single central data store for consumption.
And the two that you mentioned specifically, Informatica and Data Stage, those will clearly be able to connect to and write to the sources and targets that we support out of the box. But I can promise you it is a much more painful process to get the data moving. Those products do a whole lot more, right? Like our catalog product allows you to see the data elements that are in the warehouse and are in the data marts for users to use, where they came from. It's pretty powerful in terms of lineage and understanding what you have to work with. But are we a master data management product? No. Are we a data quality product? No. Are we a data governance product? No. But we take the outcome of all of those and can catalog it. Whereas Informatica and Data Stage, both of those have products that address, master data management or data quality. We don't profess to do that, but what we do, we can do as well as either of them.
I see.
And it's simpler, and it's much simpler. I could show you.
Thanks for the question you put there. Does that generate any additional questions from that? Or
I'm letting them up, getting aware now.
I see. You say kind of getting your head around the concept as a whole. That's perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah. What other questions from the online group? By all means, feel free to jump in. I'm in the room, but Mary's remote. She can.
Yes.
Well, if you want to, Dave, I've got my little demo system up, and I can kind of show you a little bit of what the product looks like, if you'd like. So.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. And was there anybody else before we go into that area from the from the rest of the group that may have any questions, high level or details? Either any way is fine.
Quiet group.
That's all right.
I know.
Mary, if you want to show something briefly, that would be, yeah, absolutely.
They just want me to talk more this all right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what's the difference between Click Replicate and Azure Data Factory?
So Click Replicate is, it's pre-built with, how do I put this? There is a flow to the product, and this might be better if I just show you, but there's a flow to the product, and there is a series of steps. There's a simplicity. There is a single direction on what you're trying to accomplish. Whereas Azure Data Factory has got, it's more of a development environment where you could do what we do in Replicate and even in Compose in Azure Data Factory. But the difference is it's not automated. You have to build it, and then you have to maintain it. It's just like SSIS packages. If you've ever maintained those packages, you know there's a maintenance involved with it. Our key is that it's automated. And this is why Microsoft brings us customers. We have quite a number of customers that are joint customers, because we can typically get you to the cloud more quickly. In fact, that Data Factory, because there isn't any real development that you have to do. It's point and shoot. Does that make sense? You can, I mean,
Yeah,
Data Factory is kind of like Informatica or Data Stage, right? Which I don't even know if that's around anymore, but there you can do a whole lot with Data Factory. There's stuff you can do with Data Factory that we don't do. And that's why we live in conjunction with Data Factory so well, because some of the things that we may not be able to do, you can do with an augment with Data Factory and continue to, iteratively build your solution. But what we do fast and furiously.
Thanks for the question, Sean. I think, and yeah, we can elaborate on that. Also, it was pointed out, I wasn't seeing the chat. I see Mayank had a question, interested in learning a bit about the underlying technology for Click. Also would be covered in the presentation today. And can we elaborate on the underlying technology? So yeah, Mary, we can go into that now. Mayank, is there anything else you want to, anything specifically that you'd like to focus on, or just seeing some of the technology on a high level walkthrough?
Yeah, hi, thanks for taking my question. So yeah, I mean, if I want to use this tool, what do I need some kind of servers, or what tool do I need to download? How do I configure? Does it run on like Azure, Microsoft? What technology? Is it Java based? Any technical detail that you can provide?
You need to provision a server, whether that server is on-prem or in the cloud. You can provision. Most people will just provision a VM in Azure, and then you would install our software onto that VM. So you are managing that client. It's not a SaaS product at this point. We are actually developing a SaaS solution, a transformation engine that is, it's a next level thing that, we see customers going towards. But for right now, our customers are actually perfectly happy managing the replication process. And it can live in the cloud. It can live in Azure. It, quite frankly, could live in the other clouds. We have multiple customers who are multi-cloud. They don't just have data in Azure. They may have it in AWS or Google, those bad words. But the point is that we don't care. We can move the data where you need it to be. The Replicate server is a dedicated server, and it can live on-prem or in the cloud. It is Linux-based or Windows-based, depending on what you want. So you can provision a VM with 8 cores, 32 gigs of RAM, 500 gigs of disk, and have it sitting in the Azure cloud. And you would install our software, and then you'd install the client software for the databases that you want to get data from and write data to. So if you want to move data out of Postgres, then you'd install the Postgres client onto the Replicate server. It's true middle tier. And then when you want to start using it, you would log into that server and you would configure your sources and your targets. I can just show you. Let me just show you.
Sure. Thank you.
Can you stop sharing,
I will.
Dave?
Go.
I'm cognizant I have 15 minutes, so, and I kind of have a hard
We
stop.
don't have a hard stop there. We're okay. That was what we had kind of budgeted time for, but we're okay.
All right, so share screen. I have to okay that first. Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, yeah. Bill, are you able to?
Maybe the best thing to do is just make her the co-host, a co-host, so she can share.
Do I do that?
Let me,
I think
let me do that.
Yeah, I think whoever owns the meeting has to do that.
Now, let me make a co-host. Okay.
That's fine. And you can, if you,
I'm a co-host.
You should be.
Share screen. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Okay, you guys can see my screen?
Yep.
yes.
Great.
So there's a server, my Anka server has been created. Actually, this server is in Azure and it has the Replicate software installed. And this is the, I'm gonna have to move that over here. So this is the interface for Replicate. I have a task that's currently running that's going from MySQL source to a SQL Server target. You can see the MySQL source, SQL Server target. This task is running and you see this little green here. The task is taking these tables right here from the SQL Server target. I selected those. I can create a new task for you here in just a second. And it is writing them to a schema on target called LZ Food Sales OLTP. And when I press the run button, it started running and it moved data over to my SQL Server target. I'm going to have to put my glasses on because I can't see at night. So if I come over here to this LZ Food Sales OLTP target here, you'll see that these tables exist. Along with the CT table, which is a transaction table that we use to ingest data into the data warehouse. So as you use the system, insert, updates, deletes, those are going to be accumulated in this CT table. And each time you ingest into the warehouse, we will ingest from here rather than from the base table. But this is the target right here. We've got, shippers, all of that stuff. And then on the source side, this is my MySQL source. And that old Northwind database, we just replicated that up in there. And if I were to, let's say, come in here and view the data in this little shippers table, you'll see that there's 3 rows in this table, right? And if we come out here to target and we look in shippers, you'll see that there are 3 rows in this target table on SQL Server. So if I come out here to, come back up here to my SQL Server 8, come over here, I'm going to do an insert into the shippers table for a new row called Layla's Party with phone number. And then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to delete that row right away. So when I execute that insert and delete, as expected, the source and the target are still going to have 3 rows, right? We all agree on that? Yes? So the source we know.
It takes time to find the mute button, unmute, but yes.
Okay, all righty. So what? Maybe it wants me to do them separately. I'm sorry, guys. I did this 3 times before I met with y'all. So let's just do the insert. I don't have a semicolon after that. That's what happened. You have to have those the syntactically that, these databases are super picky. So I just did the insert and the delete separately. Okay. So now if we come out here and look at the source again, we inserted a row and we deleted it. So it still looks like it did. If we come out here to the target and we look at this shippers table, you'll see that it also still looks like it did, right? But if we look at this CT table right here, you'll see that we have an insert that happened on this table and we had a delete that happened on this table. And there's some header information that you can change the header columns that are on there. But if you come out here to the payload, you'll see that I put in row 4, Layla's Party and the phone number. I inserted it and I deleted it. So this table right here is the one that Compose will ingest. And each time we ingest, then we clear the table out so that we can then begin to accumulate transactions for the next ingestion of the warehouse. That way you don't have to scan, potentially a 1,000,000 row table looking for what's changed. We're storing that data in a companion table. So for the replicate source though, this one is already running. If I wanted to create a new one, let's say I want to get data and I want to write it from SQL Server, and I want to write it to SQL Server, to this same SQL Server database, but I'm going to write it to, instead of LZ Food Sales, I'm going to write it to DBO, okay? And in DBO, I have one table in there. You with me? So I want to come in here, the SQL Server, and I want to put some data in there. I'm going to use the same source. So if I come out here and I go to tasks, so I'm going to actually, these are all the tasks I have set up. These are the endpoints I have set up. Endpoints mean connections, right, guys? So if you, or gals, I can't see who's in the room, but if this is like a radio button, these are the sources that I have set up on this machine. So everything from Azure SQL Server to Postgres 9, SAP, extractors or SAP log-based, SAP trigger-based, Sybase, all of these sources. And then these targets are all, the Azure Snowflake, you've got all this Azure, Synapse, Databricks, everything is in here as well, along with everything else we write to. And you'll note that everything that we support, you have to supply data that's relevant to connecting to that data source. So it's not just a generic endpoint configuration. The endpoint for setting up Confluent, Kafka, is different than that which you would set up for writing to SQL Server, right? So this is how the endpoints, these are all already set up. So now that those are set up one time, I can come in here and I can say, create a new task. I'm going to do this one for, I guess I need to have my cursor on it, and I have no light. I got a new keyboard and it's not backlit. I'm just gonna, all right, and we're gonna create a full load, apply changes, and then this is that CT table that we talked about that you would kick on if you're moving it to you wanted to use Compose so that you could ingest changes. We also use it for file-based systems. If you're writing to ADLS or Databricks or something like that, then there is no such thing as change data capture, right? It's going to write an individual transaction row for each insert, update, and delete. So I'm doing full load, change data capture, and I'm going to create, I'm not going to create the change table for this little task. It's just this here. So I'm going to start with this same source. I'll come out here to the MySQL source, and then I want to go to SQL Server target. And on the SQL Server target, I don't want to write to target DB. I didn't see that one. SQL Server local. There it is. See it? So there's nothing in here in the DBO schema. So this is the target DB that I'm going to write to. And we're writing from that MySQL source. So when I come here, we're going to write to, you could browse to any other SQL Server, sources or targets that might be on, that you're connected to. So you could do that. I'm just going to leave it. You can test your connections in here. I told you. And that connects okay, close this. So MySQL source, SQL Server target. I'm going to select tables from the Northwind schema, search what's in there. You can use wildcards if you've got thousands of tables so that you can get only those you want. In this case, I'm going to move them all, and maybe I'll get rid of this one. You can get very granular in how you select your tables. This is a Windowsy wizard thing. I click OK, and these are the tables now. If I wanted to, I could come in here, let's say to employees, and if I wanted to transform it, let's say let's see, this title is PII, Social Security number, boom. It's not in the replication. Home phone, no reason to have that, not in the, so we can delete columns from the target that are in the source. We can add new columns, so you can, there's a function here, you can go out. Our metadata is stored on a SQLite database, so you can create all kinds of things in here from a transformation. You can also do transformations globally. This was just for a single table. I'm just going to cancel out of this, but the net is I picked a source, I picked a target, I picked some tables, and I am ready to go. I'm just going to go over here to monitor because it's going to take me there anyway, but I'm just going to click run. And it will pick up, this happens quickly, queue, task, loaded, and it's moved all of this data over to this, target DB. If I refresh and come out here to tables, I went to the wrong one. No, I didn't. It's just not showing me yet. Hang on, guys.
Yeah, maybe right click on tables and refresh tables.
I hate the way SQL Server works. And this is a, you can try it out of here. Come on. I did something wrong.
Yeah, I was wondering if you have to refresh.
Here it is. No, I'm sorry. Target DB, schemas, DBO.
Refresh tables now.
No, I didn't. You know what? I didn't tell it to write it to DBO. It wrote it to Northwind. Look at this. Out here, if I go back to my designer, it's Northwind is where I told it to write. So if I come back out here and go into Northwind, then here are the tables. So I could, you know what, that was a boneheaded thing to do. I can always come back in here to replicate and I can stop this task. I'm disgusted with myself for not changing the schema. So I'm just stopping it and saying I need to change something. And this is an iterative development type of process, right? I can come out here to task settings and say I want to write this to DBO instead and click OK. And now that I've made that change, I save it. And then instead of just running it this time, now I have the opportunity to reload the target. And when I say OK, it's going to go out there and it will run again. And now I won't look like a silly woman here, and I can refresh. And if we look in the DBO schema, you see the tables, right? So that's how easy it is to use replicate. And then the last thing I'll show you is that in Compose, this is the workflow that I created for this right before we got on. So I've got a data warehouse. Let me go back to designer. What you do is you connect, you specify a data warehouse. You've got a model where you can add to, I told you, you can go take a look back at your source and get tables from the source and create a model that's meaningful for you guys. So, order details to orders and shippers and all this is based on foreign key relationships. There's so much you can do in here in the model to add entities to, this, I could take 2 hours demoing just this product. But again, it's all GUI driven. Once your model is built the way you want, then you can come out here to the data warehouse, create the tables based on the model. So you told it how you want the DDL to look, and then you can come out here and look at your mappings. And we do some auto mapping for you based on names, column names. But if you don't like a mapping, you can always change it. You can come out here and write functions. You can do lookups. You can get values from queries. You can add new tables, new columns. You can do data quality rules. There's just so much you can do in here. At the end of the day, when you're ready, you can click generate here, and it'll write the SQL to move data from your landing zone using the data warehouse you created with the model into those tables in the data warehouse. And then you go through the same iterative process with the data marts, and you would create, you can create a data mart from the data warehouse with, creating a star schema with a fact table, dates and whatever. And when you're done, generate the code and then run it. And what I have over here is I have a workflow that's already, I clicked that in the wrong place. I have a workflow that I already generated called default, which is from ingestion through food sales into the data mart and then end. And it will pick up anything that's in those CT tables and ingest them. And then at the end of the day, the data will be in both the warehouse and in the data mart. And you can schedule this to run with whatever frequency you want it to run. I would do like every 1 minute in a demo. I didn't really know if I was going to do this demo or not, so I didn't set it up. But, so this is now saying I want to move data from my CT tables in here. And I don't think I have anything that is, let's go and let's do this. I'm going to update the employees table on the source, and I'm going to set the first record to Charlie Watts. The name is Charlie Watts, because I miss Charlie Watts. No, I guess I'm not. Okay. I've only run this 3 times. But you get the idea. I'm happy to do a more detailed demo where I'm not flying by the seat of my pants. I don't know what I did there. But it's
The demo gods are angry tonight.
well, I think what it is that I'm actually trying to make the change on my set warehouse here is not MySQL. It thinks it's SQL Server and it can't find that on SQL Server with the north winds. So if I come out here to where is the MySQL? Right here. If I come out here and I change my, basically the use whatever data warehouse. So now I'm here and I'm in the right context. That's what I'm looking for. So if I come out here and I change my context, then I think I can rerun this statement and it'll run. Yep, just happy. And we come back out here to replicate, and I tell it I want to run this thing now. I already scheduled it, so it's gonna, there we go. So it's ingesting into the warehouse. It'll ingest into the data mart, and we should be able to go query the data mart and see Charlie Watts in the employees table. If the star schema that I wrote actually has an employees table in it. Like I said, there's a lot more bells and whistles I check when I'm doing, when I know I'm going to do a demo versus I think I'm going to do a demo. Does that make sense?
It does.
So if I come out here to, theoretically, if I come out here to my SQL Server, and I just let's go ahead and refresh just to be on the safe side. This is the data warehouse schema. You guys didn't see that, but this is the one I have set up for my data warehouse schema. And my data warehouse, these are the tables that are in there. And if I come out here to no employees, my bad, no employees. Oops, I can't show you. Another time, perhaps.
Well, it's good to see a few things on the fly and how easily we can pick up and find things sometimes when they're some of those smaller.
You know what's cool in here though, that when I click create data warehouse over here, we keep track of the DDL that we write for every step of the way here. So here's how the data warehouse tables were all created. So you could pick this up and go run it somewhere else. And then the SQL, I told you that we can run it very quickly. Sorry, you see here where it's got 460 instructions to do the ingest into the warehouse. I can come out here and manage this warehouse and look at the SQL. And this is what we wrote. It probably took about a second to write. And these are the SQL statements that we wrote. Each of them has a process type. They fall into one of 8 types, and then they have a step. And those that are, so not only do we write SQL, but if the steps are the same, they'll run in parallel. So we optimize it for parallelization on load. And if you want to actually look at the SQL, you can go into this different view. And these are all the SQL statements that we wrote to move data from that landing area into the data warehouse. So if you're writing SSIS code, you would have to write this. And I like that. I used to write SSIS code, so it's pretty magical. Anyway, we're 5 minutes over. I'm sorry.
That's fine. What other questions, if any, from the group?
So I do have one if we have time.
Yes, please go ahead.
So I was just wondering, like, is there some kind of API interface to create or maintain tasks instead of like using this GUI?
Yes, there is. I don't know if it's up, but I'm going to try Enterprise Manager. Click Enterprise Manager. Give me a second. I got to grab a password to log into this. Enterprise Manager. Nope, it's going to be all other passwords. So this is a shared environment. No, it didn't like that. Oh, I see why. I'm sorry. Give me just a second, y'all. There was a specific password and login for this. So this is like if you've ever worked with Oracle, there's Oracle and there's Oracle Enterprise Manager. This is a similar kind of concept in that all of the replicate servers, if you have more than one in your environment, can be, you can look at them all in one place, and then all of the tasks for a given replicate server can also be accessed. In fact, a lot of our customers, there's really nothing you can't do in Enterprise Manager that you can do in replicate. So a lot of our customers will simply use the Enterprise Manager interface to create, yeah, it's not up. I'm sorry, guys. I can show you this, but I can't show you right now. But Enterprise Manager, this, all of it that you're looking here, creating a task, creating new endpoints. In addition, it has the ability to, we've written like maybe 15 REST APIs to do things like starting and stopping tasks to, I had a list of them the other day, but I can share that with the ones we've written. But you can also write your own if you've got, other tools in your environment that, that do some workload management that you want to be able to stop and start tasks, you can do that. It's also got an analytics component so that we can take the logs that are generated by replicate and summarize them so that you guys can do things like look at your throughput, records per second or kilobytes per second. There's a lot of metrics that you might want to see about how the system is running. From a throughput or a up down, a percentage up, percentage down. There's about 30 different KPIs that we've already written that we collect in Enterprise Manager that you can utilize right out of the box to help tune and process your environment with. So yes is the answer. Sorry, I couldn't show you right now.
No, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the additional questions. Any others?
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to stop share here.
Works. Thank you, Mary. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
East Coast, so an hour later.
Wow, my office looks really dark. I just saw myself for the
Yeah,
first
I
time.
say like nighttime there. We still daylight.
Yeah, it's just really gray. It's been raining here in Atlanta all day, so.
Well, that wraps it up for us. So thank you guys for joining. Appreciate questions and anything else you need. You'll have my contact information, or you can reach out to Bill or connect through the meetup. As I mentioned, I'm local to Nashville, actually in Gallatin, Tennessee. And happy to help you out with anything for your customers or anybody else we can assist with. But thanks for having us. I appreciate it.
Thanks a
Thanks.
lot, guys. Thanks for Mary, and thank you for a great presentation.
You're welcome. Sorry I couldn't be there in person.
That's okay. It was impressive enough.
So much. Y'all have a great time.
Great. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, everybody. Signing off.
Take care, David. I'm gonna stop the recording.